Jamie Foxx's Electro is probably the most divisive of all Spider-Man movie villains, and while I definitely think he was a flawed character, I don't think he had that bad of a character, honestly. But he was in a movie so overstuffed with storylines, they just never got a chance to really make the movie about him. So what if he was in a movie that was just a little more small scale and personal? Like, what if Electro was in The Amazing Spider-Man 1? So we see Max Dillon just like he was in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. He's an electrician that works at Oscorp, and just like in that movie, his life is really depressing. He has no friends, he still lives with his mother, and he has an unrequited crush on a female Oscorp employee. So now we also see that Max lives in a really shitty part of New York, and he regularly finds himself being mugged on his way home. That is, until Spider-Man starts to clear out the criminal element. So we see that while everybody else in New York is kind of hating on Spider-Man at first, Max is one of his earliest supporters. So now later on, we see Spider-Man's actually having some sort of battle with like a C-list villain, like the Shocker, and Max gets caught in the middle of it and nearly dies. But Spider-Man saves his life, and Max soon becomes obsessed with Spider-Man, just like he did. Now later on, we see Peter going to Oscorp to see Dr. Connors, and he bumps into Max on the way there, and Max just starts gushing on like, "Did you see Spider-Man? He's so amazing, isn't he?" And Peter just starts to walk with a bit more of a spring in his step. Now, sadly, the inevitable finally happens. Max falls into the vat of electric eels and he becomes Electro. Now, he's assumed dead, and Oscorp still tries to cover it up, like they did. However, like he did in the movie, he breaks out of the morgue, and we see the police surrounding him. Spider-Man shows up to see what the hell is going on, and the police, led by Captain Stacy, who's still alive, obviously, they don't exactly like him yet. So they prepare to open fire on both of them, actually, but Peter is begging Captain Stacy for just a minute to talk to Electro, because he wants to try and de-escalate it without violence if he can. So now Electro and Spider-Man have the same conversation that they did, and Captain Stacy actually seems convinced that Spider-Man has a handle on things, and he orders his men to stand down. However, the command comes a little bit late, and they shoot at him anyway. So now Electro gets really pissed off and starts attacking everybody. Now Spider-Man shows the police that he's a true hero. He protects them, and he manages to defeat Electro by using a fire hose. So now Captain Stacy is a little bit less of a hard ass on the idea of Spider-Man as New York's hero. So now later on in the movie, we see the Shocker actually breaking Electro out of Ravencroft prison, because think about it, they both want revenge on Spider-Man, and they both lost to him in one-on-one fights, so I think it just makes sense for them to team up. Besides, there's the fact that Shocker and Electro as a team just sounds way too perfect not to do, doesn't it? So now we get the final battle off the power grid like we did, and just like in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Peter defeats Electro by overcharging him and making him blow up. Shocker, meanwhile, survives and he just goes off to prison, not to be seen again until the Sinister Six movie. So now, how does this affect The Amazing Spider-Man 2, you might be asking? Well, instead of Electro being the main villain, it's the Lizard. The cross-species genetic stuff that Dr. Connors was doing, well, that happens in movie number 2 instead of movie number 1. And honestly, if you ask me, I think that would really help to streamline things a bit more, since, well, both Dr. Connors and Harry Osborn work at Oscorp, so I think it would make things a little easier to juggle from a narrative perspective, and a little easier for us to follow as an audience. Also, another thing I should mention is that Captain Stacy obviously doesn't die in this version, so he lives on to the next movie, and we kind of get a Commissioner Gordon-style relationship between him and Spider-Man, which is what I was kind of hoping they were going to do, so we actually get that in this version. So yeah, I did change Electro like a little bit in this, I'm not gonna lie. I know he doesn't actually still live with his mother in the movie, but he does in the deleted scenes, so I consider it canon. And as for the unrequited crush stuff, I just thought it would make him a relatable character, honestly. Like, an even more relatable character than I thought he already was. You know, because a lot of people don't live with their moms, a lot of people don't have an obsession with a certain superhero, but a lot of people have gone through the unrequited crush. So I just kind of added add that in so you sympathize with him just a little bit more. And same thing with having him live in a rough neighborhood. I just, that's the idea of the first movie, is that it's so grounded. It's supposed to be like Spider-Man's answer to The Dark Knight. And I just think it would make so much sense for, us to see the good ways that Spider-Man can affect people, but also the bad ways he can affect people. Because, Spider-Man, he's always had kind of a mixed perception. And that's not just because of, J. Jonah Jameson slandering him. Like, people of New York are always going to have a love-hate relationship with him. And I kind of like this idea where he affects people both positively and negatively. And I would have liked to see that a little bit more, honestly. Not to mention, I just love seeing how Spider-Man affects the small neighborhoods. I mean, he's called the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man for a reason, which is why I have a love-hate relationship with Holland Spider-Man, because he was doing all those, battles with Thanos in space. I think that they kind of lost the sense of the friendly neighborhood stuff after Homecoming. And, I just wanted to show a little bit more of that in the Garfield ones, and in particular the first one. I think the first one did a really good job, but I think adding Electro as the villain would just help it just that little bit more. Because, yeah, I know this is going to be controversial, but I always kind of like Jamie Foxx's Electro more than Rhys Ifans' Lizard. Rhys Ifans is a good actor, don't get me wrong, I like him, and I understand why they went with the Lizard, because Sam Raimi had been building up the Lizard for so long, and then it didn't get any payoff, and they knew people were mad about it, so they made the Lizard the villain in the first one to make up for that. But, honestly, I think it would have been better to build him up an extra movie. Because, yeah, Connors would have been built up for an extra movie, so we could have gotten all the stuff, where he does all the exposition on Peter's parents and all that stuff. And then the second movie, we get to explore him as a person, on his own a little bit more. So we actually care a bit more about him because we spent 2 movies with him now. And Electro, I think, is a character that we can sympathize with a lot quicker. So I think it makes more sense to make him the villain in the first movie, honestly. And as for adding the Shocker to the story, I just thought that would be cool, honestly. Because the Shocker is a really minor villain, and I just think he would have been perfect to incorporate it in a movie with Electro as the main villain, because they both have electric-style powers, So I just think it would have been perfect to have them, team up against Spider-Man. That's just an idea I had, anyway. And yeah, also, as I said, I wish they didn't kill Captain Stacy off in the first movie. I think that was a mistake. I really do think that if they were going to do a Spider-Man Dark Knight-style movie, then they should have kept their Commissioner Gordon, aka Captain Stacy. I wish that they had kept him around at least a movie longer, because I think he was the personification of how a lot of New Yorkers were going to view Spider-Man when he first started. And I just thought it was so interesting to see how the police viewed him, because we see how the general public view him, but, to actually see the police hate him, I always like that a lot. So yeah, overall, I actually do think that the Amazing Spider-Man movies might have been better off if Electro had been switched with the Lizard. Like, if Electro had been in movie number 1 and the Lizard in movie number 2. It might have been a little bit better that way. I mean, that's not going to save TASM 2 from overstuffing itself, but, maybe it would have been a little bit better off, because if any villain needed more fleshing out, it was the Lizard, and I think Electro actually got fleshed out pretty good in the existing movie. So, I'm assuming that they would just give all of Electro's scenes from the second movie to the Lizard to build him up more. So, maybe it would have been better off that way. I don't know. I always like the fact that the Amazing Spider-Man movies tried to do villains the Raimi movies hadn't done, besides Green Goblin, of course, but still. But yeah, I think it might have been better off that way. But let me know in the comments down below, would you have preferred to see Electro in movie number 1 instead of movie number 2? And would you have preferred to see the Lizard in movie number 2 instead of movie number 1? Let me know all about that in the comments down below. Also, let me know if you like my idea of putting the Shocker in this movie. I know it was probably shocking. Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry. But yeah, also in the comments down below, leave me more what-if recommendations for Spider-Man, Hulk, Marvel, whatever the hell else you can think of. I will try to do my best to do it. Also, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, share it with all of your friends on all your various social media platforms. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, Rinzler_Productions, and make sure to ring that notification bell because, as you all know, I do upload videos at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every single day. So make sure to ring that notification bell and stay updated on all of my future uploads, and I'll see all of you in the next video.